Good morning. It's wonderful to be here. I'm formerly more regular at AFCEA at the chapter level, but it's great to see everybody here celebrating what I used to get to do and seldom do anymore. What I thought I would do today as a former CIO, for context, until 3 years ago, my entire career was in information technology, and I sort of took a surprise turn when I became interim president and then president a couple of years ago. So this is the fun stuff that I still get to do from time to time, so thank you for this opportunity. So a quick overview of what the University of Hawaii is. For those of you who are not from the state, we have about 53,000 students. We're unique in that we are all public higher education in the state of Hawaii. So 7 community colleges, 2 baccalaureate institutions, and UH Manoa is really a world-class research university, one of the best in the country and in the world. Very diverse, as is Hawaii, reflecting the rainbow that we are here. And it's a pretty big enterprise, as you can see. We're about $1.5 billion a year. By most measures, we're probably the second or third largest thing in the state. Of course, the Department of Defense is much huger than we are.
Huger.
So what I thought I would do is share with you institutional strategy. What I get up and worry about as president pretty much every day, and then say a little bit about how technology supports our strategies. So it's a slightly different slant on the way I used to talk about this before. So we identified 4 strategic directions for the current 6-year period that we're in as a reasonable planning horizon, and we'll be updating how this works. And I'll step through each of the 4 of these. This is, of course, not the only thing we do, but we identified these as 4 things that we could all think about almost every day and certainly every week as we try to make progress. So the first one is the Hawaii Graduation Initiative. So this is about educating more citizens. Hawaii, like most of the country, there is a mismatch between the level of education of our citizenry and the requirements for the jobs that most employers are offering. And this has particularly been impacted through globalization, increased use of technology in many sectors, leading to greater efficiencies and less opportunity for unskilled labor. For us, we have the primary responsibility for this in Hawaii. We do have some fine private institutions, Hawaii Pacific University, Chaminade, Brigham Young University of Hawaii, but by far the University of Hawaii is the 900-pound gorilla when it comes to higher education in the state. I was asked a couple weeks ago, we have a major initiative to educate more Native Hawaiians, and somebody, actually it was one of my regents, asked, why do we emphasize Native Hawaiians in education? And in this case, there's 2 reasons. One is it's part of our responsibility to the people of Hawaii, but a second is Native Hawaiians make up about 22% of the population. If we are not educating Native Hawaiians, we're not doing our job to produce a workforce and a citizenry that's educated enough to meet the needs of the state. And the same goes for our next group that we're going to work on, if you're interested, is Filipinos, which is a large group in Hawaii and the fastest growing group. So I won't go through all of the 4 initiatives, but I just want to give you a flavor for the planning process and the way we track it. So we have a statewide goal here that 55% of Hawaii's working age adults should have some post-secondary education by the year 2025. And actually today, most states have something like this. Some say 60 by 30, 50, we say 55 by 25. And you can just see from the graph, we've got some work to do to produce more graduates. And there's in-migration, out-migration that takes a piece of this. But we have a responsibility to keep this moving, as do our colleagues in the private colleges and universities as well. The data, the best data that we have seen comes out of Georgetown. It suggests that by 2020, 70% of the jobs in Hawaii will require some post-secondary education. Now you can think about this as, how could that possibly be? And I had a legislator challenging me on this. I said, well, what do your kids do? Well, one's a lawyer. I said, okay, it requires college, right? My other one's a car mechanic. I said, where do you learn how to do it? Honolulu Community College. You can't really do, the opportunities are very limited if you only have a high school diploma these days. So for this one, and we have 3 to 5 action strategies for each of these 4 major strategic directions. I'm just going to show you one of the strategies for each of the strategic directions so you can get a feel for how we do it. And our first strategy here is we've got to get more kids going to college. So if they come out of high school and they're not prepared for, interested, and ready to go to college, then we're already behind. And right now, yesterday I was in a strategic planning meeting with our superintendent of education, and right now their college going rate is around 52%, and they're trying to push that up to 65%. That means 35% of the students coming out of our public high schools are not going to college. So you can start to see the gaps that we're facing. The goals are modest, and they're still probably not aggressive enough. So this is a set of tactics around the things that we do to try to get more high school kids to go to college. And thank you very much for the scholarship support. But a big focus of this is also on STEM, which is the fastest growing and the best, highest paid jobs also. So this is one more of the strategies. Again, once we get them into college, we have to get more of them through. So 4-year graduation rates, 6-year graduation rates, and so forth. For each of our 4 strategic directions, we have a set of metrics. We put these out graphically on the web. I actually do a campus scorecard for each of our 10 campuses to see how they're doing. But this gives you an idea of the way we measure our progress, in this case on the Hawaii Graduation Initiative, the first of our strategic directions. But we're trying to focus on the number of degrees, and then we're also trying to eliminate the achievement gaps. So across the country, we find that underrepresented groups tend to perform not as well as economically advantaged. Typically, Caucasians and Asians outperform Hispanics, African Americans, sort of the way you would guess. And so we're working at how to eliminate those achievement gaps as well as drive up the overall numbers. We're also concerned about cost, and you can see those toward the bottom. We would like our students, right now our students tend to graduate with lower debt and fewer of them have debt, but this is still a problem for many students, especially those who go on to graduate education. So our second initiative, strategic direction, is the Hawaii Innovation Initiative. This is a partnership that we've entered into primarily with the business community, but government is beginning to play a stronger role, but we are joined at the hip on this one with the Hawaii Business Roundtable, which is about 60 or so of the CEOs of the largest enterprises in the state of Hawaii. So bank presidents, hospitals, insurance companies, utilities, they're all part of the Hawaii Business Roundtable. And it probably won't come as much of a surprise to many of you that Hawaii's economy is primarily driven by the hospitality sector, thanks to all of you who are spending money here at the lovely Hilton Hawaiian Village this week, and military spending. And beyond those 2 sectors, there's a tremendous drop-off, and the plantation agriculture has pretty much disappeared here in the state. That used to be a strong economic driver and is no longer. And through a series of discussions that took place really just before I became president, we identified the opportunity with our business partners of research and innovation as a 3rd major economic sector for the state. The goal is to create $1 billion research and innovation sector in this state. That's not just UH, but that's for the state over the next 10 years. And we modeled much of this actually on San Diego, which will be known to many of you. If you visited San Diego 30 to 40 years ago, it was also a town dominated by tourism and, in that case, the Navy. And now they have one of the most vibrant high-tech sectors in the country around communications, around biotech, and it keeps expanding. And for them, it's based around the University of California, San Diego, UCSD, and in all the places in the country where we've developed really strong innovation sectors, there have always been great research universities that have been part of it. We can't do this alone, but we need to be part of it, and that's why this partnership is so important. So I'll just show you one of the strategies around the Hawaii Innovation Initiative. This is about advancing innovation and entrepreneurship within the university. We're commercializing our technology in different ways and more actively now, and we're really trying to infuse entrepreneurship and innovation into our educational programs. So we used to talk about educating our students to get a job. Now we're trying to talk about educating our students to create a job. And it's not just engineering, business, and computer science. We have a great culinary program in our community colleges. So our culinary students are opening restaurants and pioneering farm to table and employing lots of other people. We have at Honolulu Community College, we have a great fashion program. We've had 2 of our community college students who have become finalists on a Project Runway TV show. And so how do we encourage people like that to start their own design firms and produce clothing, ideally here, rather than just go to work for a Hilo Hattie? Actually, they're out of business now, but you get the idea that innovation infuses almost anything. We've got a great music production program also at Honolulu Community College to educate people to work in the music industry, not just to be musicians struggling playing concerts.
We're good, thanks, honey.
And again, for this one, for each of our 4 initiatives, I just wanted to show you the metrics. And here you'll note that besides the normal sort of financial and disclosure, we see the production of STEM graduates as essential to supporting the innovation. And so we track not only the number of graduates that we have, but the number of them who are defined, and we use the federal government definitions so we can easily track and not argue with each other how many STEM degrees we're awarding. Our third area is around our 21st century facilities. So this may not seem natural to many of you, but one of the things I encountered when I came into this job is a $500 million plus deferred maintenance backlog. So that's a set of repairs that should have been done pretty much often going back 20 years or more. And the typical way the university would get funded on repairs and maintenance is to ask the state legislature for money. And for many years, when Hawaii's economy was growing, the state was investing very generously in buildings and repairs for our 10 campuses across the state. As the economy tightened starting in the 90s, we weren't getting the money, and we pretty much would just go back every year and ask for it. And as we weren't getting enough, or worse yet, we would be building new buildings but not repairing the old buildings, this backlog has built up. Not only do we have this deferred maintenance backlog, but I've been at UH since 1977, and I moved into Keller Hall, where Corey used to try to sell us stuff in his previous job. And I'm still doing it, I guess. The new engineering building had just opened, called Holmes Hall. Well, now the new engineering building is it's pushing 50 years old from when it was designed, and it hasn't had a facelift. Well, engineering education is nothing like what it was in the late 60s and early 70s when this building was designed. So not only do we have a deferred maintenance backlog, but we have a need to modernize. And that's true across the entire university, which really enjoyed its golden years and growth and booming in the 60s and 70s and early part of the 80s. So we've got a massive challenge here to both fix, but also to modernize the facilities across the state, and particularly at UH Manoa. So again, we've got a few action strategies on this, and I just highlight one of them here. That is, as we're doing these renovations, we want them to be fully sustainable. So we are the second largest customer of the electric utility on this island. Guess who number 1 is? Most of you are in this room. We're second, and we pay the utility, so thank goodness for lower oil prices. I think we're now down below $40 million a year to them. So if you think about that with probably 45,000 students on this island, it's literally $1,000 of tuition per student going straight to the utility every year. So we need to get that under control, both to save money, but it's also the right thing to do. And again, we have a set of metrics for this one. So this is our third strategic direction, 21st century facilities. So bringing down the deferred maintenance backlog, lowering the amount of electricity we purchase, looking at water, and we also want to have safe campuses. That's fun as well. And our fourth of the four strategic directions is we call it high performance mission driven system. This packs a lot into it. Every word means something. High performance, you probably understand this is, great business practices and so forth. And part of the opportunity for us is leveraging our strengths as a system of 10 campuses. But we also, within our mission, we have embraced, usually universities are about teaching, research, and service. And for us, about 10 years ago, we added our responsibility to be a model Indigenous serving university. So that's our responsibility to Native Hawaiians, Hawaiian language, Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian music. And as Hawaii's only public university, we have a responsibility of both education and scholarship to really advance these things while also making sure Native Hawaiian students are served with higher education as well. We have also embraced, this is just about 3 years ago, we formally put sustainability into our mission statement. And that's sustainability across our operations, across our educational programs, so that we're educating students to be sustainable citizens. In our scholarship, and we were talking at breakfast a little bit, we've got a great natural energy institute at the University of Hawaii that does a lot of work for DoD here and in the theater. And they also help us and the utility and others within the state. So that's an example of putting our brain power at the university to work to help society in the area of sustainability. So again, I'll just pick one of the strategies around high-performance mission-driven system, and one of them is financial. So the University of Hawaii, like public institutions around the country, and you'll see this in pretty much every single state, as the economies have tightened across the country, state appropriations or investment in public higher education has diminished. In some cases, cut in half, sometimes even more. In many public universities, the investment from the state is now less than 10% of the operating budget of a public university. We sometimes joke that we are no longer public universities, but they're a minor shareholder in our institutions. We're doing better than many, but all universities are now increasingly relying on tuition. And that's why tuition has skyrocketed across the country as a direct result of the decrease in state investments as other things, prisons, K-12 education, entitlements, healthcare have assumed a higher profile in state budgets. And as tuition has gone up, that accounts for the student debt challenges that you see and are talked about, the $1 trillion student debt burden across the country. And the challenges of students staying in school as well. So what we have identified is other opportunities to find other sources of revenue. We will still ask the state for money. We still are largely funded by tuition, but we need to diversify our funding base. And these are some of the ideas. Philanthropy, thanks again for the $5,000 scholarship to our students. This is actually one of the things that really helps us by helping our students afford their tuition. But we also have substantial land assets. We're looking at how to monetize those. If we can bring in more international students, they pay a higher rate of tuition. That's really helpful. We think we've got a great platform here in Hawaii to attract and recruit them. And also through our innovations and licensing opportunities. We would like to be the discoverer of the next Gatorade, Viagra, Google. And it's a combination of the benefit comes in sometimes from actual ownership of these companies, and sometimes it comes in just through grateful alumni who realize that their university is responsible for their success and they give back to them. And finally, let me just mention the metrics that are associated with the high-performance mission-driven system. So this has to do with efficiency, expenditures, revenue, progress on sustainability, and service to Native Hawaiian students. And we just pick out a few of these things. We actually have more of them, that we track, but we wanted a moderate number that we could easily present to our stakeholders, the regions, the legislators, and the public, while we also track at a finer level of granularity some of these things. So let me shift now back to how we use technology to advance these 4 strategic directions. And this is really key because if we keep those separated, then we're probably not making the right technology investments, and not just in the stuff, but in the tasks and projects we set before our people. This has been a really interesting time, as you know, like many of you, I've been in the technology business a pretty long time, and there is literally nothing in the university that technology isn't embedded in. So we have our tentacles everywhere. The question is, what do we really want to emphasize and focus on? And that's where we can look back to our strategic directions for these are the things we identified as important. This is probably where we should be putting our technology resources as well. So educational attainment. So the first one is our Hawaii Graduation Initiative. So I'm just going to highlight a few of these things. We have a really strong Hawaii DXP is our, there's a generic term in government, the federal government put this out, called statewide longitudinal data systems. But if we want to get students from K-12 into higher education and into the workforce, then we can't track that if we're doing that separately. The K-12 system, their data stops at 12th grade. Our data starts at 12th grade, and then the labor data starts randomly. So we have an initiative, this is what it's called, DXP Data Exchange Partnership, where we can now start tracking students from K-12 into higher education and into the workforce with the partnerships of the statewide Department of Education, University of Hawaii system, and the State Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. So this gives us a method of accountability and understanding of what interventions are working or not working. A similar kind of project is My Future Hawaii. So this is a career exploration for kids. And at our table, we were also talking this morning about by middle school, most school kids are already on a pathway. May include college or not, may include a STEM career or not. So we're trying to get kids as early as middle school exploring these opportunities. We begin to track them through the DOE, and by the time they come out of 12th grade, we have almost all of the information we need to fully populate a college application and really ease their pathway into one of the public colleges or universities here in the state of Hawaii. I'll mention our STAR system. This is an in-house developed, it started as a degree audit system, and we were just recognized, in fact, last week in San Francisco by Complete College America, which is a national scale nonprofit. I think 43 of the 50 states participate, and our system, which has now grown up into what's called a graduation pathway system, was recognized as the best in the country developed by a university. And you can think of this as, you can look at the transcript, and many of you will remember that you had a set of graduation requirements, and you had to painstakingly figure out from your transcript, with or without the help of an advisor, did you meet all of the requirements? And you did not want to find out your second semester of your senior year that you hadn't taken that second humanities class that you needed. So this does that for you automatically, and now we've pushed it out just to give you a feel for how much these technology systems can help. So we have pathways for almost every degree program, 4-year pathways that say if you want to get a degree in economics, take this in your freshman year, semester 1, semester 2, and you can mix and match from among them, but you've got to take 15 credits. You can all do this math, I bet, but students who don't take 15 credits are not likely to achieve 120 credits in 4 years. And so we lay out these pathways, they can tinker with them, but if they just say substitute dance for math, and they want to be a STEM major, we can point out that this is going to endanger your for your graduation. And we don't want to tell people not to take dance, but you better figure out how to take that math class either by going up to 18 credits, adding summer school, or tinkering in the next semester to add a second math class. So these are the kinds of things, but it lays out the prerequisites for you and keeps them on a pathway. We call it a GPS because it can correct your route just like a GPS in your car. If you make an adjustment, it figures out what you have to do to stay on track. And we have now integrated this with our online learning systems. We're moving in workforce data so that students can get this whole notion of, if you think of this continuum from middle school, when they're beginning to interact with career exploration, into college and university, what is the pathway? And as we add the labor data, that will help tell them how many job openings are there as an electrical engineer, where are those jobs, how much do they pay, what kind of degree do you need, and how do you stay on that pathway? And then we can monitor them through their online learning and give them advising if they seem to be at risk for not making it through school. And of course, I'll mention, we have a long tradition. We started doing statewide distance learning with technology in the early 1990s with video. And we continue to do both interactive video. We're on a third generation, high definition statewide video, but we also do a lot of online learning as well with a platform that we share across our 10 campuses. So just a quick summary of some of the technology initiatives that are supporting our Hawaii Innovation Initiative. Higher education is very, very decentralized. So we probably had clusters, high performance computing clusters in, I'm going to say, at least 20 different places on the UH Manoa campus, ranging from in one faculty member's lab to the physics department might share one, to 3 in engineering and 4 in ocean earth sciences and technology. And I'll show you a picture of our building, but we now have a what we call a condominium cluster. And it's a very interesting centralized, decentralized approach to providing high performance computing, which is, as you can imagine, really essential to most modern research today, or much of modern research today. Condominium means that we equipped it centrally, but we let a researcher who gets, say, a federal grant and was going to buy a cluster to support their research, instead they make that investment in our condominium. They have access to all of their nodes for the time they want it. They can also burst up to the rest of the cluster, and their unused nodes are available for everyone else. One of the side effects is that this thing is available for education, in addition to what we're able to do to support our researchers. We've started a new innovation lab, which is based on some ideas out of the Stanford D School, so focused on design thinking. It's an interdisciplinary, interdepartmental lab that provides opportunities for people to work together in a non-credit exploratory environment. So 3D printers, 3D scanners, high-resolution visualization. Speaking of which, we've made a real investment in capacity development. We recruited one of the best data visualization guys in the country from Chicago, in fact, University of Illinois, Chicago. And he's created an advanced visualization lab, and he's got nodes now on multiple islands where he's teaching using immersive virtual reality, distributed, also empowered by high-speed networks. And I'll mention, since I'm here with this group, we are still the operator of the Maui High Performance Computing Center, and we are also the managing partner for the Pacific Disaster Center. These are the 2 major DoD programs on the island of Maui, and probably the source of the best tech jobs on Maui, directly and indirectly. There's a lot of firms still in the tech part, but these are 2 of the anchor tenants there. We brought this building up about 3 years ago. This was my baby. Unfortunately, I became president and didn't get to move into my office in the new IT center. But I'll just mention a couple things because it ties much of this together. This is why we were able to do the condominium cluster. The second floor, which is blanked off, that's our data center, so it's above ground. There was, we've had our campus flood out in the past. We brought our IT staff together from 7 different buildings. We run our network, so our phone service across our 10 to 20 locations on 6 islands is all run out of this center as well, using our network. And in designing this, back to sustainability, not only did we get all of those clusters out of everyone's offices, which is highly inefficient. Those of you who are into PUEs, I think when you put clusters in a closet somewhere, you probably have a power utilization efficiency of like 2 to 3. So now we're able to bring that down to a respectable level. But this is also designed as we got our LEED Gold certification for this building, which is pretty good for a data center. In the area of high performance systems, one of the things we do is we share our information systems across all 10 of our campuses. So that's immensely efficient. If you might go to another university system, I think somebody had a relative who was president at some of the SUNY campuses. So every one of the SUNY campuses has their own student information system, financial information system, HR system. We have one of those for all 10 UH campuses, so that's huge. We have moved heavily into open source and community source, that's collaboration with other higher education systems. Our current financial system, our research administration system, was actually developed by a consortium of universities for universities. And of course, like everyone, we're embracing cloud solutions. All of our email for our entire community, we've moved over to Google, which is free for higher education 3 or 4 years ago. So I mentioned on a bunch of these slides, you probably noticed networking. So I just want to close by talking about 2 sort of overarching projects that I think pull a lot of these themes together. One is the work we've been doing on global networking. I guess we were joking about who was first to bring the internet to Hawaii. So we're even by others who believe differently, we're in the top 2, but we would probably consider ourselves #1 card. But we've had a particular focus, and this is probably the most fun thing I get to keep my fingers in, is our role in the global fabric of research and education today. So this is the family of networks in higher education. It's Internet 2. In DoD, this would be the DREN, for those of you familiar with the Defense Research and Engineering Network, would be our counterpart. And the Department of Energy has one, NASA has one, Manoa has one. And ours is truly global because universities work together in different countries. So this is just a map of the Asia-Pacific portion of the global research and education network fabric. And we work really hard to keep Hawaii in the middle of this. You can see we're on the fiber optic pathways from Australia and New Zealand to the US. So these are, for those of you who are into networking, those orange lines that connect us in. Those are 100 gigabit per second connections, and it's a dual path, pretty resilient. And we're going to be adding another one of those that goes from Guam to Hawaii to the West Coast shortly. This is some work we're doing with the Pacific Islands. So again, clearly Hawaii is the most advanced place in the Pacific until you get over to Eastern Europe, over to Asia, or down to Australia and New Zealand. None of the other Pacific Islands are anywhere near what we have. And without going into gory detail, this is a project to try and figure out how to get all of those small Pacific Islands, their research and education facilities connected in. Right now, most of our work, we're seeing successes with Guam, and I'll show you another picture of what we're doing there. But also, interestingly, with French Polynesia, which has a fiber optic cable system that connects from Tahiti to Hawaii. And finally, in networking, this is our Guam project that's coming along really quite nicely. Guam is not really a supercontinent, but we're trying to blow it up. But it turns out to be a major fiber optic hub in the Pacific. And this is work that we're doing with our partners in Japan, Singapore, Australia, Japan, and probably Hong Kong, along with our US partners, to establish a hub in Guam. This is work supported by the National Science Foundation, as most of what I've shown you in these last 3 slides. And this is how we think we can interconnect a lot of the international fiber optic opportunities for research and education, leveraging Guam. The last project I want to mention is our cross-cutting cybersecurity. So eventually I get around to the topic of your conference. And this has been really interesting for us. Just a real shout out to, I don't know how many of you know Captain Cliff Bean with NSA, who was here. He was an amazing partner. We had never met anyone like him before, and he showed up, and within a month or 2, he identified workforce as one of the major challenges facing NSA in Hawaii. Could not fill his billets. And he decided to do something about it. So he engaged with us, and he engaged with K-12 And it was an amazing set of advances during the, I guess it was about 2 or 3 years. We are now, we've been recognized as NSA DHS Centers of Academic Excellence on 3 of our campuses now. We have all of the kinds of certifications, actually 3 of the 4 kinds of certifications they have. And starting this fall, we actually have an NSA visiting faculty member embedded in our computer science department at no cost to us, working with our faculty to help develop our cyber curriculum. We have a set of degrees now that feed together, but we've got more to do. So you can start in the community college at Honolulu Community College and transfer over to UH West Oahu for a certificate or an applied baccalaureate degree in information assurance. And at our research university campus, we also have sort of theoretical geeks thinking about the science of security as well. We don't do this alone. This is not just a set of activities with NSA. This has been embraced by, so our governor is he's actually an engineer, so he's a geek as well. And his kid is actually studying cybersecurity now, so he's really interested in this area. But we work with our PACOM partners, thank you, Randy's here, National Guard, Department of Education, businesses in particular. Our electrical utility is really interested. The head of our utility is on the National Critical Infrastructure Protection Committee, and local government as well. The State Department of Defense has been an amazing partner. So let me just show you a set of the projects that we're engaged in around cybersecurity to give you a feel for it. And I don't know if Jody Ito has talked to the local AFCEA chapter. She's the person who leads most of this for us. But you can see we've got the Centers of Excellence, the Academy, NSA is our partner us up with University of Alabama in Huntsville, which is one of the national leaders. We're connecting also to folks in Maryland. One of the things I'll mention is we've developed a cyber range at the University of Hawaii that we now use to host exercises with civilian, military, academia. We do this once a year, and we have 100 sweaty, red team, blue team, etc., working through for a day or 2, and it's a really great experience for everybody to get some actual hands-on with some of these. Let me close by mentioning Gen Cyber, and again, pulling it all together, that this doesn't start when they get to college. So Gen Cyber is an NSA initiative to create camps for kids and teachers. And we hosted a set of Gen Cyber. This is our 2nd year. So our Gen Cyber, actually, we now had the most invitations last summer. And you can get a feel, I won't read these off to you, but this is about, at this point, we're doing high school students, but we also need to get teachers involved. So this is all focused on cybersecurity. And we brought one of our Gen Cyber programs to Maui this summer to get going. We expect to be pushing this down into middle school, and one of our legislators who represents Central Oahu is pushing us to collaborate between our community college, Honolulu Community College, and Lilehua High School, which is the closest one to NSA, to start thinking about how do we get those kids interested in careers in cybersecurity so they can stay in their neighborhood. So with that,
thanks, sir. First question, how are you increasing internship partnerships with local tech companies to retain STEM students and build Hawaii's long-term long-term tech community?
Well, that's about 3 questions. So internship partnerships, internship gets used in many ways. We love internships where companies will pay, or employers will pay students. Sometimes free internships are actually volunteering, so we're a little, not every student wants to go work for someone for free in hopes that they might get a job. I will say government is fantastic, both PACOM partnerships and NSA partnerships, where they provide paid internships. Those work really well, and part of what happens is that those students then get clearances as students, which then carry forward to help qualify them for going to work. But internships are absolutely a fantastic strategy, and we encourage them. Not just across STEM, but across any discipline. And employers really like it because they can basically try out students to see if they're a good fit for the company. How to build the tech community. So this is part of our partnership with the Hawaii Business Roundtable, but there are a whole bunch of entities in government as well. The High Tech Development Corporation works on this. The Hawaii Strategic Development Corporation works on funding. So our partnership with the Business Roundtable is really about the whole research and innovation sector. And we've identified we need capital, we need workforce, we need, I think the tax credit program that we have, the jury is mixed, but we're not centering ourselves on that. But we need to believe this is important and that we can do it. So that's what we discovered when we went to San Diego. And we did a visitation and talked with the people who simply started plugging away, sharing a common vision and common messaging. I think we have moved away from the way we thought about this in the 80s was let's recruit Google to open here, let's recruit Microsoft to open here. And now we're talking about how do we grow this ourselves? And that's why parts of this question hang together so well, because it's investing in our students and our, it's our faculty, it's our workforce, so that they can create those opportunities.
Thank you. Next question. Do you see a viable future for commercial or government/private partners' space launch capabilities that might find a foothold here in the state?
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. So there was a long attempt over many years, and I'm sure some of you in this room will remember it better than I do, to build a launch facility at South Point on Hawaii Island. We actually, we have an incredible number of students, including in our community colleges, who have started getting involved in CubeSats. So we'll have community college students building payload, and they will have their CubeSats and payloads launched alongside MIT, Virginia Tech, Carnegie Mellon. So we've really pushed this down into our workforce and our student body. The thing that we did that is probably most interesting is we're a space grant. So University of Hawaii is a sea grant, space grant, sun grant, there's one more, land grant, of course, the first one, college. And so we've been working to do academic launches at PMRF. And so we've got a great partnership over there. And we have engineering and Earth observation kinds of people from the researchers at Manoa, working with community colleges to build out the infrastructure. And then we're trying to build the command center for that at Kauai Community College. Because again, speaking about jobs, it's a very difficult place to get, beautiful as it is, to get people to go to. And housing is expensive and so forth. So we're trying to help support the workforce for PMRF with our education programs at Kauai Community College. I think if the government were investing in one, my recommendation would be to see what we could do at PMRF. I think, sadly, I will say it's very difficult to get something. I say this is a permit applicant for a major telescope that is struggling right now through legal and regulatory challenges. But I think using an existing site would probably be more straightforward than trying to build something new, and unless somebody has a really clear understanding of who the opponents were, why, and what it might take to get that in through here.
Thanks, sir. We have time for two more questions. The first one of the most visible security challenges in the educational system have been schools and colleges that have been at the forefront resulting from tragic shooting incidents. What does the University of Hawaii have in place to provide alerts, warnings, or even lockdowns to protect the students and the faculty?
So this is it's kind of funny. In my my last job when I was the VP for IT and CIO, I backed into two accidental roles. One was I was the principal investigator for the Maui High Performance Computing Center, which is it's a classified project, obviously. And we lost our facility security officer, and they couldn't figure out what to do because it's not a really active security office. So I ended up as the FSO, and I did that actually in until the first year or so that I was president. The second one was our vice president for administration retired. And I was the vice president for IT over the Pacific Disaster Center. And so the president assigned me, you're in charge of disasters, David, because you have the Pacific Disaster Center thing. So I actually, I was in charge of this stuff when Virginia Tech happened, which was the first higher education shooting. So we put into place, first we put in place a warning system, so we have text message and email warnings. We also, on some campuses, we have sirens, so we have 10 campuses, so everyone's a little different. If we don't have sirens, we can have our campus police can drive around with bullhorns to at least make noise and notify people. We test all these things at least once a year on every campus. So since I'm on all 10 lists, I've got, as each campus is, we're about to test our alert system. Some campuses will test a lockdown scenario. And then we also do active shooter training, and I think everybody knows the hide, run, fight. So that's basically it's pretty well understood what you have to do these days, but a lot of it is about testing.
Thank you. Our final question. How are you doing with federal funding for IT/cyber grants and studies?
So I'll say pretty well. The two projects that I oversee, MHPCC and PDC, are actually two of our largest projects in the state. Those two alone probably account for, I'm going to say $300 million in federal funding over the past 10 years, coming into the university and primarily expended, in this case, on Maui. On the cyber side, NSA has been really helpful on that. And I just got word that it took us 2 tries, but our electrical engineering department, in partnership with our computer science department, just got it's a $4.5 million grant from the National Science Foundation for scholarships for cyber students. So that'll help put together a program and a scholarship program. In general, our research profile in computer science has not been really strong, but we've done pretty well on the infrastructure projects, primarily around networking, high-performance computing, and those sorts of things to help support research in other disciplines and extend out with the region. So we're doing pretty good, but we do have a ways to go, and I'm starting conversations with the computer science department about what do we have to do to really up our game in this area.
Thank you, Dr. Lassner. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Corey Lindo, AFCEA Hawaii Chairman of the Board, to the stage to thank Dr. Lassner.
Okay, I'll stay up there. I've known Dr. Dave for 30 years, and he was an innovator here, starting with the Plato system. What was that, 35 years ago? 4 years ago. He brought distributed computing to the university, brought TCP/IP and the internet.